Hawaii's U.S. Senator Brian Schatz on Wednesday unveiled new bipartisan legislation to safeguard kids from the harmful impacts of social media. Schatz introduced the Protecting Kids on Social Media Act at a news conference and was joined by both Democrat and Republican sponsors of the bill.
We are now more than a decade into the largest epidemic of teen mental illness on record, and we do know what's driving it. Social media and its algorithmic boosting that uses kids' personal data to manipulate them. The epidemic started in 2012, coinciding with the release of smartphones with front-facing cameras. And it's continued in lockstep with the popularity of apps like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. The business model of these apps is simple. The duration of time the user spends on the app and the extent to which they engage with content is directly correlated with ad revenue. And social media companies have stumbled onto a stubborn, devastating fact. The way to get kids to linger on the platforms and to maximize profit is to upset them, to make them outraged, to make them agitated, to make them scared, to make them vulnerable, to make them feel helpless, anxious, despondent. And because these emotions increase engagement, making young people feel the very ways that we as parents and as a society don't want them to feel is built into the business model. And the results are catastrophic. Studies from the CDC have found that nearly 2/3 of high school girls and 1/3 of high school boys feel persistently sad or hopeless. Think about that. 2/3 of high school girls feel persistently sad or hopeless. And 22% of all high school students have seriously considered suicide. 22%. Our bill is a common sense, bipartisan approach to help to stop this suffering. Following the Surgeon General's recommendations, it prohibits users under the age of 13 from accessing social media platforms. It requires social media companies to verify the age of their users and raises the verification standard above the standard of clicking, yes, I'm 18. It requires parental consent for users age 13 to 17, letting families make the best decision for their children. And for users in that 13 to 17 age bracket, it bans algorithmic boosting that uses personal data to feed your content. As for-profit businesses, social media companies have a responsibility to maximize revenue, meaning there's a direct correlation between agitating kids and satisfying investors. It's not a stretch to say these companies have a near obligation to upset an entire generation of children on a persistent basis. We must act.